I am tearing up.
I just about screamed right now, and I'm not even there.
Now that's inspirational, Natalie. I feel inspired today.
Part two of this.
I could be here for another hour.
And then I was top of my class. There were only two of us, and the other guy was in the hospital. So here I am.
And I always go, he winds up homeless on the street. It's my fault.
Yeah, now you sound like my wife.
And you can get off.
I don't know. Call it Google. Call it Google.
We're in control. Alexa, how does he get across?
Paul, I cut you off earlier. What were you going to say?
What?
Dang it! Don't do that to me, Paul. Don't do that to me, man.
I don't know what got into my head, but I thought this thought, if I'm working year round, I might as well get paid year round.
Sweet Talk is a weekly 20-minute podcast brought to you by the Continuing Education and Workforce Training Division of Idaho State University's College of Technology. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud, and subscribe today. Now, it's time to get started with Sweet Talk.
Welcome, everyone, to Sweet Talk, our weekly podcast here at Continuing Education Workforce Training at Idaho State University. And today I have with me our illustrious leader, Gary Salazar. Gary, how are you doing today?
I'm feeling very illustrious. Thank you very much.
You look very illustrious.
Yeah, it's the background.
It is. It makes you look more majestic.
Majestic, at least automate, it's a good background. I wear this all the time.
Okay.
How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. It's a good day. We're recording this on behind the scenes stuff. We're recording this on a Friday, and I was like, oh my God, it's Friday. We're almost there.
Yeah, and on a short week too. Things compress on a short week. I'm glad it's Friday now.
Yes, exactly.
What are we doing here today?
We have another one of our great department heads here today. We have Raylan Price with us, who coordinates all our health programs today. How are you today, Raylan?
I'm doing well. For me, though, it's not feeling like a Friday. For some reason, I woke up this morning and it's a Monday, a full Monday. We missed Monday this week, and so we got it today.
You had to make it up somewhere.
Yep.
Well, welcome, Raylan. It's so nice to have you
you
joining us. And we got a special guest today. For everybody who doesn't know, Raylan does a super job for us with all the programs that we have under our health programs coordination, which is our non-credit side here at the IOCU. But she also has the fantastic opportunity to lead a growing emergency medicine conference. And we're doing our 4th or 5th or something like that. She's just been doing wonderful with that. And she has a extra special guest that I'm gonna let her introduce. Raylan, if you could take it away and introduce this very special guy.
Very good. Yeah, first of all, just a reminder about Emergency Medicine Conference. We are starting, registration will open on March 15th. We're super excited. We have a pre-conference this year with hand-heavy instructor training, mental health first aid for fire and EMS. And then we have Dr. Antevi giving our first keynote address. And then we are so excited to be able to add a wilderness part to our conference. And we have Dr. Will Smith, who's going to be our keynote for that wilderness sessions of the conference. So thank you, Will, for coming. We appreciate you being here on the podcast with us. And just as a little introduction, Dr. Smith is an EMS and emergency medicine physician practicing in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. He is the clinical assistant professor for the University of Washington School of Medicine. He is a medical director for the U.S. National Park Service. He serves as co-medical director and EMS physician for Grand Teton National Park, Teton County Search and Rescue, Bridger Teton National Forest, and Jackson Hole Fire EMS. And on top of that, he serves as a colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve Medical Corps. His CV resume goes on and on and on and on. So we are excited to have him here, and hopefully he can fill us in on some of those details.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show. And I'm really excited to be able to come over and speak at the conference.
We are excited to have you.
I think he's got too much free time on his hands being able to pull all that stuff together. My goodness.
I know. I mean, did you see this?
It goes on and on. She's right.
And that's the summary, Paul.
I know. It's summarized. I feel like such a slacker.
That's okay. I've got a split personality, so it makes it all easier.
Woo. Dr. Smith, Will, so
Yes.
what inspired you to specialize in emergency medicine?
Well, I really got my medicine bug when I was a senior in high school and took an EMT class down in Wheatland, Wyoming. So I grew up on a 22,000 acre cattle ranch, and helping my dad had to become self-reliant and independent. And so took that EMT class and really caught the medicine bug. And so as a 17-year-old, I got told a lot what I couldn't do. And so I couldn't drive the ambulance. I wasn't old enough yet. So then I had to become an EMT intermediate so I could take care of patients in the back. And I just kept clawing my way up the medical ladder, became a paramedic, and then went on to medical school, and then really still loved the pre-hospital EMS, SAR, fire space.
That's awesome. That's awesome. EMT is one of my programs, so that is close to my heart. So
Very good. Yeah, no, the EMTs are great. I mean, they're the ones that provide that base level of care and really kind of get people into that system of care so that we can take care of them all the way up to the physician level.
right, that's great. So you came home then to Jackson.
Yeah, I was from Wheatland, so the other corner of the state, but I've been here in Jackson full time since 2004, practicing emergency medicine. So it's a great place to raise a family and interface with all the kind of agencies like that you listed, with the Park Service, with the Forest Service, local fire EMS, SAR. So it's been really great. And with my partner, Dr. Wheeler, we've been able to really commingle all the protocols, the response agencies. So it doesn't matter who's really responding. Everybody's working off the same set of protocols and really just kind of focused on best patient care.
That's excellent. So what kind of drew you to not emergency medicine, but wilderness medicine?
So I started growing up on the ranch. I think that's really where it began. And then in college down in Laramie, Wyoming, began doing ski patrol. And again, just the challenge of being out there in the wilderness. Yeah, you can do a lot of the stuff in the ER. Yeah, you can do a lot of stuff in the back of the ambulance, but it really puts your skills to a test, being out there to take care of a patient in a wilderness setting. Plus, it's fun to get out there and just play.
That kind of leads me to a question. What are the challenges in doing wilderness medicine? I mean, you're out there in the wilderness, you don't have all this equipment with you. So what kind of challenges do you have to face?
I think that's part of what makes it so fun, is that you don't have all the tools. So you really have to learn how to improvise. You really have to balance the risks and benefits of different things. You really have to be self-sufficient yourself to be able to be out on the side of the cliff or in the swiftwater setting or the cave, and that's what really combines well to the combat and the tactical setting is a lot of those dangers, whether or not it's the bullets flying at you or whether or not it's the avalanche or the bear chasing you. The dangers just kind of are variable, but again, when it comes down to taking care of patients, you just have to kind of work through all that. So that's what's fun and exciting, and then you get to help take care of a patient as well.
No, really, you've had a bear chase you?
I have not, but we do have a predator attack response team. So I have
Oh,
responded
oh.
out to bear maulings, and
Oh,
it's a real concern.
oh, wow.
So
Wow.
for you, go ahead, Paul.
No, go right ahead, Raylan.
I was just wondering, did the tactical side come first or the wilderness as far as?
Probably started more on the wilderness side, and then I joined the Army Reserve my first year in residency, but always looking for that new and different challenge and really service to the country. And so, yeah, it's been a great opportunity to take care of the service members over in Iraq and Kuwait, as well as Egypt, Panama, El Salvador, Croatia. All these different places has just blended great opportunities that I've been able to bring those experiences back here and put into my kind of alternative civilian practice as well.
That's great.
That's really good. Being able to go out there and serve like that, Dr. Smith, and do the military support as well. When you come back from those things and put them into your practice, I mean, you're learning new techniques out there and bringing that back. What is it that are you reinforcing the existing ideas and protocols that you already know, or is that all new that you bring back?
Yeah, so being in EMS now for a little over 30 years, it's definitely seen the pendulum swing back and forth, just like with tourniquets. How we used to say tourniquets was the last resort, and then kind of being in Iraq and seeing how tourniquets really save lives. And now that pendulum has shifted to having tourniquets back in the frontline EMS workers toolkit. Or if you go to the airport, there's the stop the bleed kits that are hanging right next to the AEDs, and it's really now a first aid tool just because it's found to be so important.
I think we're finding a pretty good lead in our title for this thing about avalanches, bullets, and bears. That
might have to change the title.
What are they talking about? Now you're finding out.
So
I might get people to pay attention a little bit more. Avalanche, bullets, and bears.
The bears. I like that. So I'm reading the sessions that you're doing on at the conference is medical errors and decision making strategies, mountain medicines where ambulance can't go, and unmanned aerial systems, drones. I'm really kind of interested on your use of the unmanned aerial systems in wilderness medicine.
Yeah, so there's lots of tools that we have in our toolkit, and so the UAVs or unmanned aerial vehicles are becoming another one. It's not the magic bullet to use on every rescue, but there are certain instances in certain swiftwater settings where you're able to get the drone up in the air when you can't quite get it out over and above the river. There's still some limitations to technology, but the technology is definitely maturing with the battery life, flight distance, those sort of things. So I know Grand Canyon's been using them a bit. So when you can just pop a drone over the edge and look and see what's happened, but using them for avalanche, using some of the new sensor technologies that they're definitely kind of maturing. How do you find somebody buried under the snow? And working with some of my other military hats and things, that new sensor technology is just exploding. So yeah, how can use a drone someday to potentially be able to see what an avalanche dog is maybe smelling, and so using hyperspectral and kind of using other technologies. So yeah, it's a really evolving and emerging field, but definitely still has some really applicable uses right now as well.
Oh yeah. Have you done any UAS work where they're delivering materials or tools to you on the site?
We've not implemented that here, but I know in Scandinavia, just within the last couple of months, they've actually had an AED delivered to a scene and a life saved. I know Australia is using them to deliver lifesavers to people out caught in the surf.
Sure.
And so, yeah, we've not had a deployment method here yet, but yeah, that's getting to be the next steps. The problem is kind of the payload capability and then the release mechanism. So those are some of the things that we're looking through. But yeah, dropping off a radio to somebody or dropping off food or some emergency supplies before the rescuers can get there. So yeah, so those are definitely real possibilities and actually being done in some places.
Now that's something we should get into here, exploring at least and talking about with Walmart now able to do rural deliveries of groceries.
Yeah,
so we ought to be able to tag into that and get something for medical supplies to areas of need.
Yeah,
right. It's a pretty neat field.
Yeah, Africa is definitely doing some of that with like snake antivenin and looking at like blood products. So yeah, there is definitely a maturing field and just scratching the surface.
Well, because I mean, there's a lot of times the cost or even the terrain prohibits like a helicopter or something going in, and it would take hours for someone to hike in. But if you could go direct route with a drone, it would say I could see how it could save lives because of the speed of which it can deliver and the terrain that it can cover.
Yeah, and the risk. And so if it's a risky dark mission or something like that, you may not risk a helicopter that's kind of manned, but you may risk an unmanned aerial aircraft for kind of 10th or 100th of the price. And so, yeah, those are all the decisions that you're constantly making in the search and rescue realm.
Well, that is so cool.
Yeah, so it sounds like technology has really kind of changed the world of wilderness medicine and probably emergency medicine in general. Have you seen big changes from the time that you were an EMT until now?
Yeah, I know the term disruptive technology. I mean, just like our cell phones, I mean, the camera, the technology on it. Actually, this is what I use for flying the drone because it's got all the GPS coordinates, all those things. And so it's basically an app. And with kind of some of the products that are out there, yeah, the technology is just amazing. But in the wilderness setting, you always got to plan for when technology fails. So when the battery dies, when you don't have the cellular service, when you don't have kind of whatever happens, you still got to rely back onto your base and core skills.
That's really important to think about, right? Because even if we have all of the technology available to us, at some point in time, if it fails, we have to be able to fall back onto onto the basics. Yeah.
That's what I find is a fun challenge, is that you still have to rely on those basics. And so you've got to be able to embrace the new, but still be able to take care of yourself kind of when everything else fails.
That's right. You still have to know how to tie those knots in order to be safe. My goodness.
Right,
Yeah,
and
tie those knots, maps and compass, all that
yeah,
good old
well,
stuff.
and that kind of leads. So the other subject that you have a keynote on is mountain medicines, where ambulance can't go. And I imagine if an ambulance can't go there, that means you have to go there.
Yeah.
So you must be fairly active and physically fit to be able to go and administer the care that sometimes that you need to do, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a really key and important thing, is that if you're getting field providers out there, you need to make sure that they're physically and mentally competent in that terrain that they're in. And so, yeah, you definitely have to be able to take care of yourself first. So whether or not that's an avalanche terrain, and so you got your beacon probe shovel, you've got all that avalanche training, and then you got to take care of the patient. And so that's that next step.
So is most of your team volunteer, like in Grand Teton National Park, or are they paid, or are they how do you pull your team together?
Yeah, so as a medical director, myself and partner Dr. Wheeler, we cover multiple teams. So each one is organized just a little bit differently. So our county search and rescue team has the sheriff, who's ultimately kind of responsible for search and rescue in the Teton County jurisdiction, as is most kind of states. The sheriff is responsible for search and rescue. And then the rest of the team, after one coordinator that's paid, is all volunteer. Grand Teton National Park has got the Jenny Lake Climbing Rangers, and DJ, or Darren Jernigan, who's also with your institution. He's a well-known commodity in that space, but yeah, he was one of the summer climbing rangers. And so each area has just slightly different organization, how those teams are put together. But as you look across the country, vast majority of search and rescue teams are volunteer.
Darren was very disappointed he couldn't join us today.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious, because you're doing this wilderness rescue missions sometimes. That how do you assess risk of that rescue? I mean, you have someone who's in duress or in trouble, and you need to go out there, but there may be risk to your team. How do you make those type of decisions?
Yeah, we've got some tools. We've got what we call a GAR tool, or green, amber, red. So we actually look and talk through what risks are out there, see what strategies we can do to mitigate the risk. Sometimes it may be actually waiting till the next morning because it is just too risky. But again, there's a mantra in the field. It's like, you risk a lot to save a lot. And so those are all the things. But risk is inherent to everything we do. So I think the risk to benefit and kind of the risk mitigation is real important. And so while we kind of acknowledge it, sometimes there is some risk that you do have to take.
Some risk, and probably a lot of training and education, so that you're not putting a lot of more people in danger, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly. And so just being well trained, being physically and mentally fit. Helicopters, while sometimes they do increase the risk somewhat, it may be less risky to send a helicopter and 4 or 5 people compared to sending a whole ground team of 50 people kind of through the night for multiple hours. So yeah, those are the constant risk evaluations that we're doing.
Dr. Smith, is there in your memory, was there an operation that you were on that you could describe that just took a matter of days to get in, take care of people, and get out? I'm sure you've had a huge variety of different kinds of events, but is there one that stands out in your mind that you would be willing to describe?
Yeah, one of the ones that I remember pretty well is on an avalanche rescue up on Teton Pass. And so it happened about in the mid-afternoon. A gentleman got caught in an avalanche, and it took a while for his friends to get out. They're in the valleys. There's still places where you don't get cell phone service. And so they had to send one of the friends out for help. And so by the time that we got the call for help, it was already dark. by the time we got to the patient, it was about midnight. We didn't have a helicopter could fly at night, so we had to do some prolonged field care and take care of him and keep him alive through the night, and then extract him the next morning. Up in the Teton Wilderness, there's been calls, where it's just you may be a day or two from civilization. If the helicopters can't fly for weather or what other factor, you really have to be acknowledging how to care for those patients for sometimes prolonged periods.
Wow, very, very tricky, and like we talked about earlier on, and you acknowledged the risk of, assessing that. Do we go? Do we not go? There's a shortness of light. It's getting cold. There might be more risk of additional avalanches. How much risk are we putting on our team to go after this guy? It's a huge calculation that you do.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Thank you for that. I mean, that's an awesome task to be able to do, and great service that you bring to so many different people.
Thank you.
Incredible.
I think the big thing is that most of us that go out there that do search and rescue, we enjoy being in the backcountry ourselves. And so we know that there may be a day where we may be the one in need. And so that's kind of part of the reason why we go out there to help our fellow person that enjoys the wilderness as well.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up because we've had Darren on the show previously, and that's one of the things that he did bring up is the passion that the team has for the outdoors themselves. So I guess that you have quite a bit of empathy or understanding for, even though the people might get themselves in an emergency situation, why they're there, what they're, that they want to enjoy the outdoors and get as much recreation from that and enjoyment from that as possible.
Yeah, there's definitely call outs that we do that people are negligent. They've made all the wrong decisions, but then there's call outs that we've had where the person's made all the right decisions, and it's just one of those things that happens. You catch an edge, you break a leg, some random tree trunk falls on you. I mean, there's all sorts of different variables that are out there. So, but we don't judge. I mean, we're there to help the person in need and kind of do what they need to.
I mean, it is the wilderness.
Yeah.
The wild, wild wilderness.
Well, I think this is just amazing to hear all these stories. Personal question for you, Dr. Smith. What would you prefer? I mean, environment-wise, if you had to go after somebody, mountains, Sahara Desert, is there a preference? Or in other ways, I'd rather not be in the desert because I can't stand heat, or the mountains are the best one because I'm trained there, or even water rescues, whether it's streams, rivers, oceans. Do you have a preference for one place you'd like to?
One of my personal kind of challenges and favorites is caves or confined space. And so those are the ones that really make you have the most constraint on the amount of supplies that you can take with you. The technical nature of the rigging is different than what we do in a lot of other settings. The patient care through very confined spaces. If you look at like the Thailand cave rescue, then you throw diving into it as well. Caves definitely are a keen interest of mine.
I didn't even think about caves, but yeah, that's space. And then, how far they trapped, if they've had a cave in, and, then that's definitely a danger for your team because there could possibly be additional cave-ins.
Yeah,
wow.
In the atmosphere in some caves, you can get toxic gases or limit of oxygen and build up of CO2. So yeah, there's lots of challenges.
Wow.
Yeah. Raylyn, we're getting close to the end of this thing. Maybe we should start wrapping this up. And is there anything our audience should know about the EM conference where the good doctor is going to be presenting?
Just come. It's going to be so much fun. We have great speakers, dynamic speakers, excellent topics. This is a great way for you to get your continuing education hours and to learn from the very best. So we are so excited to have Dr. Smith with us, as well as our other presenters, and it's going to be a great conference.
I've seen the lineup. It's going to be a great conference, and exciting to see a lot of colleagues there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it also. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Smith. This has been awesome to hear you. I appreciate you making the time to come on board. Paul, your banter as always is just amazing. And
that's what I excel at.
Yeah, Raylyn, your leadership here is incredible. Thank you so much for heading up the EM conference.
Dr. Will, thank you so much for being on with us today. If someone wanted to get a hold of you or your team, how would they do that?
Yeah, certainly they can get a hold of me. My Twitter handle is at WillMD911. So that's WILLMD911. Or my email is will@wildernessdoc, all one word, WILDERNESSDOC.com.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And if you want to get a hold of us, you would either join us on our website at cetrain.isu.edu or email us at cetrain@isu.edu, or you can just do the old fashioned call us on the phone at 208-282-3372. Hey, Gary, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate Raylan. Always a pleasure to have you here with us. And again, Dr. Will, I really appreciate it. I hope you'd come back sometime to give us some more stories. I love to hear these type of things all the time.
Yeah, we'll see you at the conference.
You might know that Dr. Smith is called to speak all over the world. So
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm on my edge of the seat. Just the cave thing. I would just like to get one cave story.
I just got back from Vermont, Switzerland last week. So that
wow. Yeah, you have to come back.
I can tell you a cave story, but I guarantee it won't be as good as Dr. Smith.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and come again next week and meet our guests that we'll have next week. Thank you so much.